Hello, welcome everyone again to Investigate's Voice of Architecture. Joining us today is architect Eman Hussein from Alchemy. Hello, Eman. Thank you for joining us النهارده.
Hi, Farah. How are you?
مبدئيا عايزة أسألك على how do you see COVID-19 affecting the architecture business?
Okay. COVID-19 had a drastic change about the nature of our business, about how clients approach us, but the dynamics we work with here as a team. I would like to talk about two major ways the business has changed. One of them is, and people have become much more conscious about their spending and where to allocate their money with all the economic crisis happening with the pandemic. And since our service is considered a luxury to some people, so it affected our business in terms of projects. Some projects became on hold. Some projects were accelerated so that because people are wanted to move into their homes, their new homes faster. So there are two different, either projects became on hold or they became accelerated for people to enjoy their indoor spaces, their homes, and retreat in their very personal spaces. So these are two different ways of reacting to the pandemic. Something else is the dynamics that we work with here, of course, the meetings, the nature of the communication as a team and communicating with the client. So things are becoming much more virtual. So the pace was shifting, the normal pace we were working with and the normal pace we were communicating with clients was all in a phase of shifting. But not necessarily to a bad place. It's people are more conscious of their time, of space, of how we can connect in so many different ways other than the physical way we're used to.
Okay. And do you see it affecting the trends, the architecture trends of today?
100%. Now with what happened and how we spent 2 months in our homes, people have become more aware of their personal space, of how they relate to their personal space. And it became more about comfort more than luxury and aesthetics. So it's about how do we live actually in our own space and how the space reflects our very personal way of being. So this is going to shift the business completely. That's in terms of the residential projects.
Okay.
But for commercial projects, people were a bit skeptical. Business owners that wanted to develop commercial spaces are we want more outdoor spaces. We're not sure how are things going to be related to the indoor spaces, the proximity of people getting together is all different.
Okay. And what type of project are people more into? Individual or private residence, ولا real estate, big communities or big projects by developers النهارده? I mean, how your business when it comes to Alchemy today, do you have more of this or more of that?
Actually, during the pandemic or what happened with COVID-19, all the small businesses, the private residences were much more affected than work with the developers. Because developers, it's usually a long-term process. But during the COVID-19, we were actually working nonstop with developers, developing real estate projects, because it's the cooking of the project, and they were getting ready for what's going to happen after the pandemic. So some launches of real estate development projects were were scheduled to happen like in September and October. So work with developers wasn't that much affected, but work on smaller scale businesses where people were more conscious about where to place their money and how to spend it.
And your personal pleasure, do you like working more on individual projects, private residences, or on bigger projects with developers? What's your preference?
There's pleasure in both. When you're working on a private residence, you're actually dealing with a person or a family or people that you need to actually know them, get to know them well, understand what it is that exactly they're looking for, their comfort, their lifestyle, and what change you want to bring to the table. There's more human contact on a personal scale. For these type of projects, you enjoy them, but you don't want to do too many of them because it takes so much work, much more time and investment of energy, and the process takes longer, but it's very intimate and personal. So there's the pleasure of that. But working with developers, you have much more impact on the community. The scale is bigger, so you think of masses and how we change the lifestyle, or work with like presenting new architectural prototypes to change the way of living of a whole community. But then the developer and the designer need to have some sort of a vision that is aligned, because when you're thinking of mass, you're also considering so many other factors like economic factors, very conscious of mass production, of area efficiency, of so many other factors that sometimes developers really don't have they're more conscious of how to spend the money, and it's very business driven. Okay. So it's the designer's role to actually bring the essence to the project, the quality, the human aspect. So there's this pleasure also.
Okay. And what are the new dynamics when it comes to commercial, retail, and administrative projects in architecture nowadays?
Okay. And for example, when we're designing like office buildings and commercial or retail projects, people are requesting to have big outdoor spaces. They're very conscious about, they're skeptical about what's going to happen in the future. We don't know how drastically our lifestyles are going to change. The work environment is going to change. Even the leisure places are going to change. So people are conscious about having more outdoor spaces, bigger outdoor spaces, and even in indoor spaces, we're trying to have, even here in our office, we're renovating our office to have bigger spaces so that the proximity between people changes, and having more like personal, bigger spaces. This is affecting the nature of the business very much.
Okay. كنت عايزة أسألك على sustainability. How is architecture في مصر النهاردة becoming more and more sustainable? Is it something working, or لسه too soon to apply sustainability النهاردة?
Okay. I want to relate this to the pandemic and the shift in consciousness we're having on a human level and on the level of the environment in the universe. We're becoming much more conscious about our health and the health of the environment we live in. So, and sustainability has been there and in Egypt for a while. But now with what's happening, I think we're going to go more towards green solutions and actually try to apply them. Green solutions, they were viewed to be a little bit expensive when thought of economically, and for plans that are a little bit short-sighted. But for long-term planning, it's going to help so much, even on the level of developers وكده. لا بصي عايزة أعيد السؤال مش عارفة بقول إيه.
It's okay, it's okay. That's recorded. It's okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
نبتديها تاني؟
ابتديها تاني يعني ابتدي الإجابة من تاني.
Okay. And I think with what's happening with the pandemic, and that people are becoming more conscious about their health on a personal level and the health of the environment. I'm quite sure in the coming period, some developers and lots of people that are in charge of developing new architecture are going to go for green solutions and green architectural sustainable solutions. Because when you think of it, it was always thought of as extremely expensive لما بنفكر فيها, and we want outcomes or right away. But for long-term planning, this is going to هيبقى بيوفر كتير قوي في expenses and running costs في lifestyle بتاعنا, وفي نفس الوقت بقى فيه awareness بتاع what are we bringing to the environment, ايه الدامج اللي احنا بنعمله, even احنا the space we occupy. يعني green in terms of, I think the trend is going to be to have more efficient, comfortable spaces than having like big, large, luxurious spaces. But even in that sense, هنأثر على environment with like the spaces we're using, consciousness on all levels that affect our lifestyle, the environment, كل حاجة. I really think that that's going to be the trend in the coming period.
Okay. And what do you have in your pipeline? What are the projects that you're working on now?
We're working with many developers. We're developing G-Town in New Giza, for example. We're working with, we're also developing in the North Coast some projects in Almanza, and also in we're working on Playa, for example, and Seychelles is one of our realized projects. And it was like there was a shift in the perception of architecture that happened with Seychelles, the spaces, and how people feel in the spaces, because it offered something different. Like when you enter the spaces we designed in Seychelles, you would feel like nature was part of the indoor space. Light was coming into the indoor space, and it's breezy, air comes in. You have outdoor courts inside the houses. So with that project, we actually tried to present a new type of architecture. And of course, we got like mixed reviews about that, because having spaces that are like so airy and so open, you have lots of glass, and then there comes issues of like maintenance and cost of glass, but I believe it was successful, that it showed a different way of living. And I'm sure this is going to change in the well-being of people, like having the natural elements come into the spaces we live in.
And do you have a favorite design that you personally worked on? Do you have specific, your favorite one?
There are so many, but there are projects that are unrealized and projects that are realized. So my personal preference, I like designing small spaces. Okay. So for example, I like boutique restaurants. There are projects that I designed that are, for example, there's a restaurant in Guna called Chicha that I like because it was small and cozy. And on the bigger scale, I like the G Hotel was a project that was so challenging, and I think the outcome was quite successful. It's one of my favorite projects.
Our last question is, what type of advice would you give homeowners today when it comes to designing their spaces?
I would actually, this is going to be weird coming from a designer, but I would actually encourage people to get to know what they want in a space on a personal level much more. Like it's designers, they have a huge role in translating what the people want into actual volumes and material solutions for them to enjoy their lifestyle. So the more the owner gives us info about how they want to relate to the space, the more we can translate that into solutions that actually change their way of being and their well-being and their lifestyles. So, and it's also the role of the designer to try to understand what is it that they want out of the design or the spaces. And there's one other thing that I would encourage. I always encourage clients to like have their input and put their imprint into their spaces. The designer doesn't really have to dictate each and every element in the space. Some things need to be a little bit personal, but of course with the guidance of the designer to get the best outcome, so that each space becomes as personal as it can get, so that the user is happy and the designer achieved something that is authentic and real.
Okay. Thank you, Eman, for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you.
Thanks.
For having me.
Okay. Bye.